with, oh, what what a great comment. As soon as I hit the go live, the little bubble comes up from Andrew saying you have a bunch of positive energy. Thank you. I appreciate that. It's it just happens. So especially on a morning like this, this is when it's good to be in Arizona. When I'm walking, it's I don't even need this jacket. It's 50 some degrees and sun shining anyway. I hate starting off with the weather every time because two reasons. One, I know half the country is in an ice block, and people are like, yeah, you keep your little sunshine, right? But the other reason is probably in about a month, I'll be walking around in a t-shirt and shorts, sweating, doing these live streams, and so on. So I want to jump into the topic. I just want to give a minute for everybody to show up, because usually by 10 minutes in, we've got 100, 200 people that are watching, and they miss a lot of the core stuff. So before we get into the topic today, which is going to be the perspective. It's almost like I love the way the title of this reads. Dear Jeremy, I'm spread thin, but I still want to grow. It almost reads like the old Dear Abby questions. A lot of the topics that I get for these live streams, all of them I get directly from you. After these live streams happen, there's a group of publishers, editors from, I saw somebody say hello from the Philippines. I have a couple folks from the Philippines who actually take these live streams and they edit them down and they put all the timestamps, and one of the things that they're doing now is they pull out a lot of the great comments. They're like, that's a great question. So two things before we get started. One is this topic was literally word for word from a question. I think it was even from last week's live stream where I said, greetings from Frisia. I don't even know where that is. Frisia. I don't even know if I'm saying that right. Greetings. So last week I talked about I'm certified, but how do I get a job? Sorry, it's a big sunshine. Let me see if I can go the other direction. How do I get a job even though I'm certified? And one of the comments somebody said in there is, I want to grow. It had to be in context, but they said, I'm spread so thin. I had a network deployment at 2 a.m. last night. How do I grow through that? So that's the topic of this morning, but I also want to do a quick announcement. I would say the number one thing that I pulled out from last week's live stream, Morocco. Oh my gosh, did I just say that? Morocco. Forgive me, everybody in Morocco who said hello there. Are you back? Hello? I think we're there. The Sudan. I see the Sudan saying hello to me. Sorry about that. It's the fun part of doing live streams over cellular as I walk in the Arizona landscaping, right? It's thank you. I'm back. Good, great. So what was I saying? The other thing I want to announce, if I can say that, is the next. So I've got a plan for next week, but the 4 live streams at least after that, I'm going to be dedicating to what people call soft skills. There was an overwhelming response from the last live stream where we were talking about, how do I get a job? I'm certified. I've got a college degree, whatever the case is. How do I get a job? And we got into soft skills, and there was just so many people like, and the overwhelming feeling that I got is, yeah, that's just me. You know what I mean? That's just me. I run into that. I was just talking to someone last night, and they said, I'm just not the most social person. I struggle. And so I'm here to tell you, I think I can help with that. Soft skills are just like hard skills, technical skills, if you want to go that way. They can be learned. It's not just who you are. So it's going to be exciting. So a lot of the live streams for the next month or so, after the next one, I don't remember the topic for next one, but it'll be based around soft skills. Okay. Sorry, that was a much longer intro than I thought it would be. So let me get into the topic at hand. And I literally, this was one. So sometimes I just do these off the top of my head. When I saw that question come in, I'm like, let me put some thought into it. And I literally wrote in a Microsoft OneNote for an hour. I just filled just pages, and I'm like, okay. And so I'm like, so this morning I try and put all my thoughts on a little note card, and I'm like, it's not gonna fit. I'm gonna be walking for 20 hours if I get into this. So I'm going to try to be concise as I can, but those of you that know me know that is just a challenge in itself. So here's the topic. And the way it was actually phrased when it came to me is, I'm spread thin. I was just doing a network deployment last night until 2 a.m., but I still want to grow. How do I do that? It's good. And ironically, last night I was doing a network deployment, connecting two data centers in Arizona and Texas together. We ended the call at about, I want to say 10:45 p.m. But after you do a network deployment, you're like, oh, let me document some things. Let me add some things to Netbox. Let me, it was midnight something before I fell asleep, and then I'm still staring at the ceiling. It's just because your mind is going after you do a network deployment. So I get it. I was there last night. So the first thing I want to make sure I emphasize to you, when you say I'm spread thin, I want you to I don't want to say watch your words, be careful with your words, or anything like that. But think about the words you're saying. I'm spread thin is a cliche in itself, because everybody is spread thin. If you ask anybody, I'm spread thin. I have 7 kids. I homeschool. Well, my wife does. I try and help when I can. I run a business. I'm doing online training. I'm spread thin. But you know what? My uncle is spread thin. He's retired. And I asked him if he wanted to play racquetball. And he's like, I can't. I'm busy. I'm like, huh? And anybody that you talk to, regardless of their stage of life, except maybe some kids, right? They're all spread thin. It's a cliche. And the reason I say that is because we feel like we are always spread thin. That's just how things are. So I want to make sure that you and this is where my thoughts go is oftentimes we feel spread thin, but there's a fact reality. Like we live in a world right now, and I'm not going to jump on a soapbox, but it's worth mentioning, where people believe feelings are reality. Like how you feel is how it must be, because if you feel that way, then you've defined your reality, or whatever the case is. So when somebody says, I feel spread thin, you got to check that. And that's where I'm like, doesn't matter how you feel. Sorry, that sounded so harsh. Doesn't matter how you feel. What's the reality behind that statement? You have to put some facts behind it. This is at the top of my note card. It's funny, I keep showing this to you because there's so many thoughts and so many directions. First thing I want to make sure I emphasize, I saw somebody's doing their CCNA labs right now. Awesome. Keep going. So realize that everybody's situation is different. I have talked to some people. I remember doing with Network Chuck. We did a live stream together where we were debating using physical lab gear. It's funny, just CCNA labs made me think of this. We were debating using physical lab gear versus virtual lab gear. I was like standing hard and strong on you got to get the real gear. If you've never done it in the real world, then how are you I'm Chuck and I are going back and forth, and it was a fun live stream. But at the end of it, I looked at some of the comments, and some of the people that they're like, I'm studying from a hut in Africa. We have no electricity. And I'm sitting there like, I didn't even consider that situation. So realize when I say these things, when I'm like, everybody feels spread thin, it's so easy. I want to make sure you catch that I'm not like, everybody's situation is different. I threw mine out there. You've got yours. Everybody's different. But what I am saying is that you have to convert that feeling into a reality. So how do you do that? Otherwise you will always be victim to your feelings. I'll leave that right there. However you feel will be your reality. So how do you convert feeling spread thin to a reality? Because I'm going to the other half of the question. The other half of the question says, I feel spread thin, so how do I continue to grow? Well, if you just leave it at feeling spread thin, you're not going to grow. So how do you convert it to reality? I only know one way, and there may be others. If you have them, chat them in. And that is time tracking. What I mean by that is you need to convert the feeling to fact. Two ways to time track, and let me give it to you. And when I have one-on-ones with employees, things like that. They're like, I'm so busy. Everybody's busy, right? That's why everybody's busy. I'm like, okay, well, do this for me. I tell employees to do this. I want you to take a piece of paper and sit it next to you. Every 15 minutes, I want you to stop, set a little timer on your phone, a recurring 15-minute timer. Stop, write down what you're doing. Write down what you're doing. That's one method. And I like that method because it's hard when you're in this, and then somebody walks in the door. What about this? And then a PRTG alarm went off. I've got to solve that. It's hard to remember. I need to log my time. But that is the other strategy, is when you change activities, write it down. Is that the moon behind me? No, it's the sun. It's the sun. It's the morning. So two strategies to track your time. Every 15 minutes, write down what you're doing through your workday or through your entire day, however much you want to track. Or every time you change activities, write that down. And you need to do that for 2 weeks. And the only reason I used to say 1 week, the only reason I say that is the only reason you say that. Some of the comments I see come in, I'm like, I'm walking too fast. Some of the comments that I see coming in are, man, I got to stop looking at your comment bubble. Sorry. Some of the challenges I've seen as we've rolled out time tracking at VIA. We're in the process of implementing a system called Autotask that tracks everybody. I jumped right in. I'm like, okay, I'll do it. And I tracked all of my time. And it is hard to get in that habit, especially when you're jumping from thing to thing to thing. It's like, oh yeah, I got to write that down. Oh yeah, I got to. So 2 weeks, the first week will probably be a pathetic mess. And I want you to set yourself up for that. You'll probably, I forgot to do, let me just I was probably doing that for 3 hours, or you start doing these big assumptions versus the reality. What I think you'll find when you actually do time tracking is that there's a huge gap between what you feel and what's actually happening. Between feeling spread thin and actually being spread thin. The reason I'm saying this is the first step is because if you're always feeling like there's just not enough hours in a day, you're defeated already. If you're trying to grow, you're trying to, I'm assuming, get certified, learn a new skill, jump into a new position at your company, whatever the case is, you're trying to grow. If you're feeling like it's impossible because there's just not enough hours in the day, you're done. Start right there and say, let's prove a different reality. Because what I think you'll find is, I saw somebody say, what about managing baby time? I can give you some tips on that. But what I think you'll find is there's a huge gap between what you feel and what's actually real. And I got to warn you, when you start tracking your time and putting some facts behind it, you're probably going to have that moment of like, wow, I don't do anything. I think I only work 3 hours a day. And that's okay. That's great. Because it's almost like, if you can't tell yourself the truth, my business partner used to tell me this all the time. We have to start by telling ourselves the truth. If we start on a lie, if we start on a feeling, we're sunk already. We have to start by telling ourselves the truth. And the fastest way to tell yourself the truth about being spread thin is to do a reality check and say, maybe I'm not as spread thin as I possibly am. So, okay, so that's my first thing. Are you feeling spread thin, or are you spread thin? So find that out with time tracking. Second thing, value. What? Well, the second half of the question was, I really want to grow, but I'm just spread thin. And I would respond to that by saying, maybe you need to keep your values in check. Let me tell you a quick story that just popped in my head. It's a made-up story. It's not real, but imagine if it were. You see an email that comes in from a local club in your neighborhood, and you're reading the email, and it says, "Hey, this is a new car club. We're going to teach everybody how to fix carburetors in cars for free." Or, pick your car part, an alternator, an engine, or whatever. I'm obviously not a car guy, but we're going to tell you, it's going to take about 3 hours on Saturday, and you will literally be able to get into the vehicle. You'll pop the hood. You'll change a carburetor. You'll do whatever. I know somebody's shaking their head right now. I know his car's really. You'll do that in 3 hours. You will walk away with an amazing skill that is in demand all over the place, right? If you saw that email, it's like, click here to sign up, click here to RSVP, will you come? You would probably have, and I want to make sure I emphasize, maybe you're really wanting to get into cars, because I'm trying to align this to where we're at. So you would probably have maybe, I don't know, because I do this all the time, maybe 20% of the people that got that email on a great day, maybe 10%, maybe 5% actually sign up. When the Saturday actually comes, you would probably see maybe 10% of that 10% show up, right? There would be a massive gap between, first off, getting people that saw the email to sign up in the first place and getting people that actually signed up to show up in the second place. Okay, so change the scenario. The email comes out. It says, hey, we're going to show you how to repair a carburetor for free. You're going to walk away with a brand new skill. And you get to keep the car when you're done. Right? It's like, hey, well, we've got all these cars here. You get to fix it, and Jeremy's comment on it must be a Ford email fits even better with this. And you get to keep the car. It's you get a free car with this. I guarantee you, if obviously there's the people going, is that for real? Like, some people would doubt it being even real, but you would have a massive amount of people signing up, and you would have an equally massive amount of people showing up. Why? I'm asking, like think about it. Why? Because you value a free car. I got something for free that has value to me. Maybe you would sell it. Maybe you would be like, I need a car. I need something to drive. But there's a massive gap between grabbing a skill. You see where I'm going with this, right? A massive gap between grabbing a skill and actually getting something for it. And if you aren't assigning value, the first thing I said is quantify your time, because my guess is you're probably not as spread as thin as you feel. Second thing is, do you really value? I really want to grow. When somebody says, I really want to grow, do you? I mean, really? Do you really value growth? And can I give you an interesting side note? There is a series of training that I created on CBT Nuggets that is probably the best training I ever made, ever. It took forever to create. We called it the IT Expert series. IT Expertise, IT Expert. We went back and forth with the name. And what it was is me doing stuff for real. There's a massive gap between learning something for certification and actually doing it. And I told CBT Nuggets, I'm like, hey, I run a company that actually does this. I said, what if I grabbed a GoPro and actually showed rolling out VLANs and showed, this is literally what you're gonna do on the job. This is literally what you have to know to grow. They took forever to create, because there's a difference between sitting in a lab and doing it in a bubble and actually, setting up cameras and doing cable installs and all that kind of stuff. The series did pretty well on CBT Nuggets, but let me tell you where I'm going with this. I talked to them and I said, I want to release every single one of these videos for free on my YouTube channel for free. The best training I've ever made is literally on the YouTube channel that you're watching right now for free. My theory was this will be explosive. There will be a ton of people. You know where I'm going, right? You see why I told the car analogy, right? I'm going to show you how to fix this car for free. And you're going to walk away with an amazing skill. And very few people will show up. Why? Because when you really do a gut check, there's a gap between value and learning those new skills. Like when somebody says, hey, I want to, I really want to grow. I don't want to, I don't want to be a jerk and be like, do you really? I mean, because there's a difference. I mean, I really want to have muscles. A lot of them. I was wearing a shirt yesterday. No, this is 2 days ago. I was wearing a shirt, and it was one of those, it's not like the Under Armour shirts where there's a comedian, Nate Bargatze, who just does a hilarious thing on Under Armour shirts. But it was kind of like one of those things where I used to wear that shirt and be like, I'm pretty awesome. Like I feel good. It's a tight fitting. And I put it on, I looked in the mirror, I'm like, oh man. I was like, so what did I do? Did I suddenly get a new motivation to work out? And no, I'm like, I'm changing the shirt. Like, I'm not wearing this. I look, so that's what I'm saying is when somebody says, I really want to grow, I do too. But do I really value the skills that I'm going after? ... ellipse. If I were doing a voice dictation on Siri, that's what I would say. ... Think about that. So let's see, value growth. Okay. So thanks, Jeff. Put a sweater on. Too hot in Arizona. Sorry. I guess I kind of left it at like, do you really value? So the question you might be asking, okay, I do feel like I want to grow. How do I really value that? Like, I feel like I would love to be way more fit than I am. I walk all the time. I love walking, but when it comes to working out, that's just not me. Where's my camera? So how do you do that? And this is where I would say it probably has to be one of those, situational things. Like I've heard all kinds of things, where like I've heard people that will say, okay, put some money in a bank account and tell yourself if I don't do such and such, then I'm gonna give all that money away, or maybe then I'll be able to withdraw that money and spend it on something fun, or there's all kinds of strategies that I've heard. And personally, for me, none of those worked. None of those worked at all, because frankly, I lack a lot of self-discipline that I should have. And that's just me being real. I wish I could work out an hour every morning and wear that shirt again. But the fact is, I lack a lot of that self-discipline. So I know what works for me, but I can tell you, I can tell you, you have to figure out what works for you. Let me tell you what works for me. What works for me is putting myself into a forced situation accountability. It's a term I just came up with. Forced situation accountability, meaning I do well when I get myself stuck in a situation and I'm like, I got to figure my way out of this. Like, if I don't get out of this, let me rewind time to when I was 20 years old. 19. I started teaching certification classes when I was 19, and one of the first technologies was Novell that I was teaching. I know, right? Old, but I know. So there was a moment they're like, "Hey, who wants to teach this new Novell firewall class?" And I was like, "I'll do it." I was like, "Sure, I'll do that. That sounds good. I'll learn that." And I procrastinated because I was dumb, and I was literally there the weekend before, 48 hours straight of just studying. My eyes were burning, and I'm like, why did I do this to myself? But in the end, you know what happened? I learned how to make Novell firewalls work, and I learned how to teach other people how to do that as well. That's what I would call forced situation accountability. I put myself in situations where I have to grow, and at this stage of my life, I kind of do it on purpose. You know, I started a company. When I started the company, I talked to the guy I started with, and he's like, well, what do you want for a salary? And I was like, I don't think I need one. I said, because we wouldn't be able to grow the company if I took a salary. I said, whatever I learn through this, that'll be my payment. I just want to learn through this. And I will say, starting a company was probably one of the best, worst, forced situation growths I've ever done. You know, like, people have asked, would you do it all over again? I'm like, you know, like, I can't answer that. It's like, would you just intentionally subject yourself to so much pain you would you know, be up crying late at night? I mean, it's like I don't know if I would do that again, but I have grown so much by sticking myself. Okay, you get. I'm done. I don't want to make this too much about, like, here's what I do, but I know for a fact a lot of people's self-discipline, if you're like me, will not be strong enough to, you know, put these little rewards over here. Oh, there's a cookie. You get to eat that if you know. I'm like, you know, I'd be like, I'm eating that. You know, like, I don't care. You know, I'm spending the money. Like, but if I put myself in a situation that I can't get out of, where other people are depending on me, I guess you would call that accountability. Whew. Watch me rise to that challenge. I'll do that all day, and it's not fun. It's not comfortable, but. There it is. So, okay. Next piece. I flipped it over. We're halfway there. We're almost there. I warned you this would be a little longer one. First thing I talked about was quantify your time. When you say I'm spread thin, take it beyond a feeling into fact. Are you really spread thin? Track your time. Second thing, are you assigning value? Do you really value your growth? You know, and I'll go back to that free car analogy. It's you know, do you value the skill, or you just want a free car? You just want the money? I see that comment coming in, because I will tell you, there is money in technology. There is money in growth. But if it's all about the money, and I've seen it, I've been there, you may find yourself working in a job that you hate, and become one of those people that are just like, I hate doing this, but I've got to do it because it's all about the money. Money, I know this is going to sound dumb to a lot of people, but you have to trust me. There's no other way I can say it is, if you're doing it for the money, one, first off, ethics typically goes out the window. But two, you end up doing things you would never want to do with your life. And you fast forward to, you know, age whatever, and you're kind of like, why am I here? How did I get here? What am I doing? Like, I don't want to do this. And you will have regret, because you're trading time for money. And time is your most valuable asset you have. Last thing I'll say on that. Okay, so what's the next thing? Okay, I'm spread thin, but I want to grow. I was up till 2 a.m. last night on a network deployment. A lot of that feeling. So let's convert it to fact. But the next one I would say is learn how to grow. One of the barriers to success is people get stuck on, okay, I know my time. Hey, good morning, dogs. I know I've quantified my time. I value growth. Okay, and how do I do that? How do I grow? My advice on this is changed a little bit here and there. But I would say there's obviously the atypical path. You go after a certification. We'll say a technical or some other certification. I would say that's the fastest path to have some accreditation that shows that you know what you're doing. But the world's changing a little bit, and I'll explain that in a moment. And those of you that have heard some of my other live streams will recognize an echo of some of the advice I've given in the past. Some people will look at a college degree and they'll say, oh, there it is. I will go to this school for 4 years and I will spend $100,000 and I will walk away with a piece of paper. I'm being a little facetious, that says I know what to do, and now people will hire me, or I'll be able to progress, or I'll get another job, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Or I'll go after my MBA. That's a common thing I run into. I'm going to go after my MBA. I have met a lot of people with MBAs, and they struggle with the same thing. The how to grow. I'm not saying don't get a degree. I'm not saying don't get certification. These are all good things, you know. But I would say nowadays, the best way I think that you can grow is to grow. I know. I'm ready for all the comments. Oh, you're so done. No, what I mean by that is maybe start with something you're interested in, or maybe start by looking at job descriptions. You ever notice that? Everybody said, go after a college degree, go after certification. I haven't ever heard, anybody that says, how about you pull up a job description for a company that's hiring jobs? Maybe pull up 100 of them and print them out and be like, what do people need? Do they need another guy, another gal with an MBA? Do they need another CCNA certified person? Again, I know someone who said I'm doing CCNA labs. I'm not saying don't get it, but I'm saying, do they need that? Maybe they do. But I would suggest that perhaps as you look at these job descriptions, you'll see at the top the standard template, and I talked about this earlier of like, 4-year degree required, blah, blah, blah. They don't require it. The truth is, if you can start forming relationships, you can get right past all of those kind of things. There is a lot of truth in the who you know side kind of thing. But let me hang on. I'm going off on a totally different topic. How do you grow? What I would suggest, I am so un-American because I'm like, dogs. Anytime I see a dog, dogs. What I would suggest is that you align your drive, your thing. I see you play golf in there. What you're going after with what people want. There's jobs, there's businesses that need things. Do you know what those things are? And I know it sounds so basic of a question, but are we asking that? I mean, are we just saying, I need this piece of paper that shows people I know what to do? Or are we saying that I'm trying to get things that people want me to do? And so let me give you a suggestion. This is literally as I'm writing this book last night on this topic, I thought, okay, how would you do that? Okay, so you pull up a job description. They're like, we need somebody to, handle VMware, blah, blah, blah for our environment. Okay, they need VMware. How do I learn VMware? You know what? There's a lot of VMware books out there. You know what? There's a lot of websites that have VMware. You know what? There's a lot of Reddit trains that have people that are trying to get started in VMware and they need help because they're trying to learn VMware as well. So maybe you start by saying, I'm going to learn VMware. Maybe not all of it. Maybe I first off need to scope in what do I need to learn VMware? Now, the easy way is to say, I need to go after Fortran experience. I saw in one of the comments that's packaged and little bow tied on it with the test that claims that you know what you're doing. That's all it is. It's all the information that's out there for free, but we value it. We pay X thousands of dollars to go after a course because it is so neatly packaged for us, right? And maybe there's value in that. That's good. But are you really learning that skill? So maybe let me land my plane with how do you grow? Maybe you jump on Reddit and you start responding to some of the posts of people learning VMware where they're like, hey, I'm stuck on the install. I'm putting a bootloader on blah, blah, blah. I can't get this thing to install. And you go grab an old box out of the back and you're like, okay, let me plug that in. We all have an old computer sitting somewhere, right? You plug in a USB key, you try to, and you're like, actually, I didn't do it. Let me respond to this post with exactly what I did. Maybe that would help you. The reason I say Reddit is because Reddit is full of the good, the bad. It's like the social media forums, if you will, where it's like, you get the good, the bad, the ugly on Reddit. Once you perfect it and you're starting to feel a little confidence, which is, by the way, one of my future live stream topics, how do I gain confidence in a lot of these technologies? Okay, once you do that, now go to LinkedIn. And no, I looked at the the comments from the last post. This isn't a LinkedIn commercial, but what I'm saying is that's where you can build a profile where people will find you. People will say, hey, I'm looking for somebody with a skill. And so you create a LinkedIn post where you're like, hey, this is a perfect install guide. Name it that way. Perfect install guide for VMware ESXi, right? Here's my step-by-step with screenshots. I took some time. I made this PDF. I hope this helps somebody. Do that again. Do that again. Do that again. Build who you are based on what people are looking for. This job description said a lot about VMware. Let me now reply to that job description with my resume, which, yeah, I don't have the 4-year degree you said were required, but just click on my LinkedIn post. I think you'll understand. I know VMware. I'm pretty awesome at it. And I'm using VMware just because it popped in my head when I was talking. But that's a pretty good how. Come on, you got to okay, and so you're saying for free, and this is one of the tough parts. I could tell you stories about free where there's a lot of oh, well, if it's free, then it doesn't really, there's no value in it. But for free, I could grab job descriptions and I could build not only my knowledge, but my profile, my experience, and what I'm doing, and land a pretty good promotion or a pretty good job just by doing that. One idea. That was just as I was sitting there brainstorming last night. Okay. Last thing, where am I? And by the way, can I say what one of the things I was thinking about when I was thinking about working out, I said, one of the things that happens every morning, I probably walk 5 miles when I'm doing these live streams, because I'll just start walking, I'm talking to you guys, and I'm, I stop and I'm like, okay, man, I got like a 2-mile walk back, and like, oh, and so I do that. But my point in telling you that is that's what I'm talking about on accountability, and it kind of leads into my final point on this. Growth is hard. So I'm going back to the theme, and let me hit the key points. The topic is I want to grow, and the full statement was, but I was up till 2 a.m. Last night doing a network deployment. How do I grow when I'm spread so thin, right? I'm saying that in wow, thanks, Mustafa. I just saw that great tip coming through. Thank you, Mustafa. I hugely appreciate that. Last point on that. Okay, so yeah, I'll just jump to it. Last point on that is know that growth is really, really hard. This is on a totally different topic. You are going against the natural order of things. Natural order of things that the way the world is everything leads to chaos, right? That's one of my big issues with evolution, is I'm like, there's nothing in this world that shows something just happening out of nothing. No matter what it is, and I this tree right here, I live in a desert. You know what? If somebody stopped watering that tree, it would turn to dust, when it's said and done. Nothing gets better without some intentionality and a massive amount of force behind it, because everything in this world leads to chaos if you just follow that. So know that growth, you are going against the natural way things happen. The natural way is just, you want a great life, just do nothing, right? Eventually, stop eating, stop walking, eventually your muscles atrophy, you get sick, you die, because you're not pushing against the natural order of things that drag things down. So do something that starts easy and gets you stuck. This is my best advice for you. Some of you know, I recently released a NetBox series. There's some open source software. We wanted to use it to document all of our IP address, IPAM is what somebody said, our IP address management at VIA. And I was like, this NetBox thing sounds great. And so I was like, I'm going to create a video series about this. Some of you know this. Some of you have signed up for it, on getting started with NetBox. The first 5 videos of that thing were awesome. They were so easy. I'm like, let me show you how to install NetBox in 10 minutes. Let me show you how to get it running. Oh, there's our web GUI. Let me show you how to, add your first site and things like that. And then I got stuck. I'm like, okay, this is supposed to be easy, but how? This doesn't make sense. And 5 videos into that series, I hit my first wall. And that's where I'm like, okay, this was a dumb idea. I shouldn't have. Now I'm telling you what I go through, and I've gone through this hundreds of times. So I know the feeling, and I'm at the point where I'm like, okay, I got to get past this. But I'm like, okay, I should just stop now. Just stop the Netbox series now. I don't get it. And I always say, hard work is fun. Stuff where you know how to do it, it's just hard. It's kind of fun. Confusing work, it's demoralizing. It's like, it's not only is it hard, but I don't even know that what I'm doing matters. I saw somebody's comment that's like, I've done so many things, and I haven't gotten to where I want to get. And I'm like, I get it. It's like, it's confusing. Am I doing the right things? And what I'm saying is, hard work is the right thing. Confusing work sometimes is the right thing. Pushing through to figure that out. I finally released the Netbox series, 15 total videos. And it was a labor of pain. Everybody says labor of love. It was a labor of pain to bring that thing to completion. And even as I completed, I'm like, there's so much more. I could talk about APIs. I could talk about integrating this with, and so know that the best thing I can tell you is start easy. Start with something really easy and get yourself stuck. And then don't give up, because everybody else does. Know that everybody starts something easy and gets stuck. And what usually happens is people go, this must not be for me. And they jump to something else easy until they get stuck. And then they jump to something else easy. And what you end up with is somebody who knows how to do pretty much what everybody else knows how to do and get stuck, right? And so that's where my best advice to you is get yourself stuck and then push through. That's where I would combine everything that I talked about in here. Start building that LinkedIn profile with the accomplishments that you're really proud of. Not just, I can install VMware. Everybody can do that. What is something that you can do with VMware that is kind of rare? Something that people are like, oh, wow, this guy, gal, really knows what they're doing, right? I knew it would be a little longer. Sorry, but I think this is such a huge topic, and I think the misnomer of being spread so thin that you can't grow is something that we all need to get by. I feel spread thin all the time. I saw somebody's, how do you handle babies? I've had 7 of them. I have a 1-year-old still. And yes, I get it. They are, oh no, the stream got stuck. Well, I saw somebody comment and it must have froze up at some point. So sorry if it cut out. That's the beauty of live streaming over cellular. But anyhow, this has been good. I hope that you guys grab something out of this, or as I always say, I hope this has been informative for you. I'd like to thank you for viewing. See you guys.